You've been saying you want to write a book since the 1900s, and I hate that for you. Because in this day and age, it has never been easier to become a published author, but yet you're still committed to letting fear kick you around and talk you out of your dreams. If you're new here, my name is Katie Bennett. I'm a best-selling author, the founder of Lexicon Presents Publishing, and your host for Drafts Don't Count, because they don't. Now, I'm going to assume that if you're here with me this week, you did what I asked you to do last week. And even bigger than that, your why terrifies you. You feel so unqualified for the position that it feels scary to know all of the work that needs to be done in order for you to do it. I hope that's where we are. That better be where we are. Moving right along. I want to unpack a lot of what the core messaging is in those fears and in those excuses that we tell ourselves along the way. I want to write a book, but I don't have the money. We know we can't publish for free. If you're a decent human being who don't believe that everything should just be handed to you because of who you are, you walk into every situation knowing that there's a cost to be the boss and there's a cost to get someone's knowledge, time, resources, etc. And so just that simple thought of knowing like, hey, I don't have the money for a designer. I don't have the money for an editor. I don't have the money to use a hybrid publisher. I want to offer you something that I wish someone would have offered to me. Because when I started this, I was a single mom. I was so broke, y'all. I couldn't even afford Wi-Fi. And so I had to walk to a certain establishment. I won't say any names because I'm trying to get a brand deal. I had to walk to certain establishments and use their Wi-Fi just to be able to have access to any information that was available on the internet for me to take things to the next level. And so with it came a lot of different things. I found out about a lot of websites that you can use to help you that'll have like freelance editors, freelance writers, if you need a ghostwriter even. There's so many different components and things there. And as someone who did it for free when I first did it, I do have to let you know that that is an option. Now, I don't recommend doing it completely for free because as with everything else, you get what you pay for. But there are ways to where you can publish your book and you don't have to pay anything out of pocket to get it done. I just want you to know that truth so that way it becomes easier for you to dispel the lie that you believe that you don't have the money to do this. Because I'm telling you, you can do it absolutely for free if you absolutely have to. In that, I kind of go over some areas where costs will come into play, and that's book cover design, book formatting, book editing, your ISBN, and that's your International Standard Book Number, and that's how people identify it. This is one of those things where I'm not unpacking all of these different things right now because we still have other fears to uncover in this short amount of time, but I will tell you that that is one thing that if you're not clear on your dreams, and we'll unpack that in another episode, you don't want to limit yourself by taking someone's free ISBN because you lock yourself to their platform only. I always recommend, even if you are committed to not paying anywhere else, pay for your ISBN or go to a publishing house that will include that for you. You'll also pay for marketing and for copywriting. Again, that's something that, are there free areas and opportunities? Yes, but it's your work. Do you really want to play with that? I want to write a book, but I don't have the time. And for a lot of us, that could be true. You may not have the time. I'm a woman raising 3 children, and sometimes it just feels like 24 hours in a day just isn't enough because I cook all their meals. I have to drive everybody everywhere. You know, my oldest wants to be a D1 athlete. Sometimes it just really feels like there just isn't enough time. But using myself as an example, my first got written by writing 1 page at a time, just like with everybody else. I committed to 1 page every day. And as I started to get through that 1 page, you know, through repetition and diligently showing up, I started challenging myself by adding time on my workday. So this 30-minute routine that I'm getting you guys to build, I started doing it during my 30-minute lunch. And so I'd eat at my computer while I was working. And then during my 30-minute lunch, I'd go find a quiet area and I would write. And that helped me break up the boringness That's not the word I'm looking for, but whatever, of the day. And it also gave me time in the middle of whatever I was working towards to remembering that I'm working for something bigger and better. I want to write a book, but I don't have the knowledge. And that could be true. If you're listening to this or watching this, you really may not have the knowledge. There's going to be a lot of terms throughout this process that I'll say to you that you may need to go and Google search and define or look up because you don't understand it. And that's okay. I started off not knowing anything either. I didn't know trim sizes. I didn't understand the different weights of paper and the different ways in which they could be laminated. I didn't understand any of that. That came with time. And so I just want you to know that if this was a fear that you've been having, that's what this space exists for. And if this doesn't feel like enough, baby, I get it. You can always go over to lexiconpresents.com. And we have free resources there. I even have a channel on YouTube that walks you through how to do certain things. We have ebooks if you're needing more concentrated information. So there's a lot of knowledge that is available to you for free through Lexicon. So if this is something that's been holding you back, don't let it hold you back anymore. I want to write a book, but I don't have the resources. I know it can align very similar to I don't have the knowledge, but some of us have a tendency to separate them. So we'll also say, well, I don't have the knowledge, but I don't have access to a designer, an editor, or whatever. In this day and age, it is so easy to put yourself in alignment with someone who can help you. In the ebook that I'm reading out of right now, Shut Up and Finish Your Book Already, I actually use the example that when I first got started, I was still in college. And so I went to the college's writing center. And this young lady wanted a resume or wanted to build a strong resume for her writing career and portfolio. And so I said, well, I need an editor. Will you edit this for me in exchange for a letter of recommendation or, the chance to say that you edited a book? Now this was a long time ago, y'all. So that was able to kind of work through that barter system. Be respectful of people's time and their resources and what they have in order to help you as well. But you always have access to more resources than you probably recognize. If you haven't gone to, lexiconpresents.com to check out what some of those resources might entail, you really are telling yourself, oh, I don't have access to it. And there's solutions, so that's one thing. So the last one, and this is where most of you have probably camped out, is I want to write a book, but I'm scared. And fear is going to sound like a bunch of different things. It can sound like no one's going to read it, but everybody's already publishing. No one is going to want to pay for it. I'm just taking away time from my children. My story is not that important. Y'all, there's so many different ways that fear is going to show up, and it will show up throughout the different steps in writing process. But what you need to understand is that those things are there to keep you safe. So I'm not going to villainize the fears that exist because its job is to make sure that you don't do anything that puts you in danger. And going after your dreams, which is putting you in territory that your brain doesn't know and understand, seems scary. That's why it's trying to talk you out of it. I want you to see that no matter what your brain is saying, if we can find a way to combat that. So it says, well, I want to write a book, but we don't have the resources. That's a lie. I can go to lexiconpresents.com and I can find almost any resource that I need to help me to succeed. I want to write a book, but I don't have the time. That's a lie because I've already been intentional about carving out at least 10 minutes for the last couple of weeks. So I know I can always make more time. I can take time out of binge watching or doom scrolling, or I can take time out of, even when you go on a walk, you hit a voice memo and you talk it and transcribe it, and that's how you get it. You always have the time. And so that's why this week we were just going through all of the different lies and excuses that you can potentially tell yourself and fall victim to, so that way you start talking back. So your homework this week is that when any one of those fears tries to talk to you in any way, shape, form, or fashion, it tries to run up on you and bully you into this belief system that your story doesn't matter. It's not worth sitting down and spending 30 minutes at least a week to putting that to fruition, that you fight back with some truth. Your story does matter. You already identified a why. You already identified that someone somewhere, whether that's you or someone else, needs this story to be told. And so now we just need to learn all of the different parts of telling that story and tell it. So get to writing. Get to writing. Like, I hate to sound so ghetto when I say it like that, but sometimes, and one thing that I've realized and I've noticed is that when people get comfortable with their excuses, you're comfortable there and you're not going to go unless somebody physically or forcefully tells you to do it. Get to writing. Get to writing.